another ASC webinar. And this one's special for multiple reasons because this is episode 50. So we have done, prior to this one, 49 other ones. And I am pausing because I hear the echo. Now it's gone. All right. So, anyways, we have a very special guest, Annie Sisson, who is going to take us on a conversation about how you can adjust your productivity with various seasons. And I am so excited about that. But this is our 50th webinar, so we should celebrate that with a little.
You need the confetti.
And do I have the confetti? Let's see. Heyo, there it is. But I am so excited. I am so excited. We're just going to jump in. Before we just start the conversation, like our guest, our very special guest, Annie Sisson. Now, because we talked about it before we started, it's in my head. And I was very scared I was going to say your last name wrong, Annie. So just, anyways. But I will just do the top level, but I want Annie to really take us who she is. But Annie's a multi-passionate entrepreneur, storyteller, helps others explore the world and themselves in meaningful ways. And Annie, give us the 411. Give us just the tip. If we really knew you, we would know what.
Okay. Just the tip. Here we go. Well played, Gary.
Yes.
If you really knew me, things you would know. I'm a sucker for a puppy. I often talk about my tree friends, which is perfect. We're going to be talking about all the nature. And I will never turn down a good meal. Like, you always keep snacks handy. This is important if we're ever going to be, if we travel together, you will never go hungry. Promise.
Yay. Awesome.
And Gary, did we introduce ourselves? Or did we just jump in?
We just jump into things. If this is your first time seeing us, if you discover there's some way, we're the Accountability Success Circle. My name is April, and then that.
Your name is April?
It's
one of those days. Okay, and my name is
I thought
Gary.
you just did that on purpose.
In my head, so my brain is going like a million miles per hour. In my head, I originally thought by saying I should say that is April because in the Zoom April's above me, and then I was like, no, that might be weird because April might not get that she needs to say who I am. So,
well, I'm Gary.
I'm Gary.
And I'm April, and we are your success team. We have a community called the Accountability Success Circle, which is focused on helping you achieve all the goals that help you live your best life. And so we'll talk more about that later, but we always want to bring you amazing conversations that help you look at getting things done and achieving your goals differently. And Annie and I met at the Everything Conference back in August last year. We have become like BFFs since, like constantly leaving each other messages. She is like my sister from another universe. And so we are I'm so happy to have her today to share some amazing conversations. And this actually was the concept of this webinar was based off of a conversation that we probably had months ago. And we're like, we've got to table this for a webinar because this is some really good things, really good stuff. And we talk a lot about, being intentional, really staying focused on our goals. The execution of that, the way that we do things is really different. And I'm always intrigued at different ways to do things because we're all different. And there is no one size fits all model for getting things done and being productive. And it really starts with understanding who we are at the core and how we do our best work. And then leveraging those things that we have and we know about ourselves to take action on those things. So I would love to now start this conversation that has been delayed for a few months and talk about being seasonally productive. There's something about the way that we do the year, right? Like we just had January. We were all like excited for the new year. Sometimes people get super excited around their birthday and they're like, oh, it's a new year. Some people might, be driven by the academic calendar. And so September, it's like, it's a new year. But I've never really thought about how the seasons impact. And from a high level perspective, I know that I do different things in different seasons, but I never really understood how nature's seasons really impact us and how we do work. And so, Annie, before we start talking and getting into the meat of, what nature's seasons do to us and how we can leverage the seasons to be our most productive selves, like what got you so into nature? You said that you love your tree friends, and I hear you talk about that daily, and I love it. But what made you grow this relationship with nature to the way that it is now?
First of all, thanks for having me. Also, this was the best start to a conversation ever. So thank you for that. Crushing it. Yeah. So I grew up in Utah. And my parents were very much into the outdoors. Like family vacation for me was, we are going to pack up the horses and ride for 5+ hours into the wilderness and camp for a week. And like that was normal for me. And so, I just grew up in nature, loving, the natural world. But, then we get older and have friends and turn into teenagers and we don't care about those things very much. And so I was thinking about this, like, when did this start? I think for me, it was really probably in my 20s, just recognizing like I spent a chunk of my 20s in North Dakota. So upper Midwest winters are no joke, right? So I was just noticing that with the darkness and the cold, that my motivation is different. What I have the capacity for is different. Going outside isn't as available. And so it just kind of, I noticed not just myself, but the world around me, my humans, and, life starts coming back in the spring, right? Like things start thawing out and we're like, feels like coming out of hibernation. Like, wait, oh, hey, I haven't seen you for 3, 4, 5 months because we've been hunkered down. And like, I just have noticed over time, I did my yoga teacher training back in 2012. And that was my first kind of dip into intentional like meditation, mindfulness, paying attention, like body mind connection. And so through that, I just also started noticing the shifts in my own energy as the seasons changed. It started getting warmer and, where my body wanted to be outside or inside. What do I have energy for? Do I have more energy certain times of the year? So it kind of just started as just growing up in nature, noticing what was happening around me, as the seasons changed, and then really getting to know myself and paying more attention to how I function in different parts of the year.
Awesome. So when we talk about nature seasons and how they impact your energy, it sounds like, this may not be, it is subjective to, us as people, but then also, where we live, right? Because seasons show up a little bit differently. Yeah.
Totally. Like I have spent most of my life in places with 4 very clear seasons. Mm-hmm. And visiting other places where things, and even now I'm in Washington and it's a much milder transition between seasons. But I still notice those same kinds of fluctuations. Maybe they're not as obvious as they have been in other places, but I'm still like, just a couple nights ago, I started hearing the frogs. I'm like, oh, spring's coming because the frogs are coming back. So little things like that, like there's still those shifts, even if you don't live in a place that has clear, those linear seasons like some of us experience.
Yeah. Awesome. So should we go through the different seasons? Is that a good way to approach this conversation?
Sure. Yeah,
right.
we can.
Yeah.
So let's start with the season that we're in right now, which is winter, right?
Winter.
We're still in winter.
Going on spring.
I want to
We-
be like we're in spring, but that's
Not yet.
positive manifestation. That's not the groundhog said no. All right. So
Literally 1 month from today, though, is spring equinox. So
Okay.
we're
So-
close.
All right. Well, let's talk about what we're in right now and how that impacts us. And for those of you watching or listening, see if this resonates with you, no matter where you are, because I know that, Gary is in California. So that's very different from Chicago here, where we have snow on the ground and negative temperatures. And Annie's in a different place as well. But yeah, so what does winter do for us?
Okay, so let's think about this as far as like, okay, winter, right? We are coming out of the darkest time of the year, right? Winter starts, winter solstice, longest night. This is where all the traditions of like the Yule log and keeping the fires going all night. This is the quiet time. Bears are hibernating, the squirrels they've stored all their things for the winter. Like this is where nature rests. The trees, if you live in a place where, the trees drop their leaves, this is, they've pulled all of their energy inward to, store up and, keep themselves intact through the cold. But this is really just the season of rest. The dark is so much more than the light. This is the perfect time as far as like productivity goes. This is the time to reflect on the previous 3 seasons. Like, okay, what did we learn? What did we shed in the last season? What do we want to bring when the light returns? So I always think of this as like all life begins in the dark, whether it's like seed underground, mammals, gestating, like eggs. I mean, whatever it is, but all life begins in the dark. And so this is the perfect time for dreaming, right? We've got all of that darkness. Cozy up, get your books, dreaming, learning, planning, kind of laying those foundational pieces so that when, we start moving back toward the light in spring and we've got more of that energy that we've made our space internally, externally, whatever, ready to hold that new life that we want to bring into the next season. So that's the nutshell. Feel free to go further.
Gary, do you have any questions? I have a question,
Yeah.
but go first.
Not so much a question, more of a thought. And it seems so like intuitive. It makes so much sense. And, we were talking about how the weather affects us. And I do know in Southern California where, we don't get the traditional seasons. It can, like, I feel like I personally feel like a lot of resistance during this, because the sun is out and it is a little bit more chilly, and you like feel like, oh, because the sun's out, you feel like, oh, I should be out and doing things, but like the body is like saying no, and so then there's this sort of like dissonance, and so in hearing it that way, like it makes sense, like this is where we should be dreaming, this is where we should be like sort of restoring and stuff like that. So that's just my sort of observation on what you had mentioned.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Gary. So one of the things that I'm like, thinking about when it comes to, okay, so winter, so the new year happens in the winter. And so from what you're saying, there's this like, we should be, kind of we're like in a preparation stage rather than like, it's the new year, let's go. But like we leverage the new year as like, it's a new year, it's a fresh start. And we all like zoom to like whatever it is that we want to do. We like hit it hard, hit the ground running, as we will. I know I use that term, but when I say it, I use it very loosely, as long as it's, whatever your intention was. So there may be people who are like, let me just take it and like ease into the new year easily, or, slowly and easily because it's winter. But it's just so ironic that there's this like surge of like energy that we associate and attribute to the new year, but like we're in this season of like darkness. And so I'm just curious if you have any thoughts about that. You look like you do, but Yeah.
I have many thoughts about that. Honestly, like, I mean, again, I'm a fan of do what works for you. But if you are one of those people who, like, for me, it's like that idea of bursting into life in the middle of winter has felt so, like, I have, like, my body and my mind is resistant to that. I'm like, it's still like so dark all the time. I am not trying to, like, I don't feel super energetic. I don't feel like I am in that place of bursting into life. And I mean, if we think about it, I mean, it's a turn of an arbitrary calendar page with some squares on it. Like, that doesn't really mean anything. We've, I actually did some research on this because I'm a nerd. Um, that, like, the Gregorian calendar, right? This was set up by the Catholic Church to align holidays, religious holidays, more with pagan holidays from the seasons and that sort of thing. So, like, this is all just made up by dudes in charge of things. Like, do we have to follow that? I mean, you do you, but you know, if you're looking for an alternative, if that doesn't feel resonant, that let's jump right into everything in January, you're not wrong that, like, your body is responding to, like, but yeah, but maybe this is the restful season. And so, for those of us in who have projects and jobs and all of these different things, like, just hibernating, like piecing out for a few months is not realistic. So how do we continue to, this has been kind of my thought process in putting this together for myself is, okay, how do I continue to make progress on the things that are important to me and the projects that I want to move forward while still, like, honoring the season of rest and rejuvenation. And so, yeah, that's why for me that feels like this is the planning stage. This is the part where we start really laying that foundation that we can build from. But maybe you take it a little slower, and that's okay.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting because, for the ASC, like our whole system is like, yeah, let's use January to be the start of the new year. It's not doesn't necessarily mean like we hit the ground running, but it is a delineated year, but we do our planning in the fall. So I'm really curious to hear how, your perspectives about the fall and like how the way that we've structured the ASC and how it like aligns or doesn't align with the season, because this is absolutely new territory for me and I'm loving it. But before we move on to spring, which I'm super excited because we get to look toward that in the next month, if you had any advice for people who are like thinking, okay, I've got one more month of this like wintry mix, and I'm here in negative temperatures. The sun is starting to come out, but it's like cold. So I feel the hibernation, and I know that I do a lot of hibernation in the winter. But what would be some suggestions on like things that people may want to work on in the next month to leverage the remainder of winter?
Yeah, I mean, this is the perfect time for, just think about, like, okay, imagine we're going to use a garden analogy just because that's easy. But, like, this is the part where you're gathering your seed packets, right? What do I want to plant in the spring? What do I want to come to life over the rest of this year? Like, this is the perfect time to get really clear on what, like, yeah, what does your garden look like this year? What projects do you want to see grow? How are you going to, like, plot that out with the other elements of your life? How does this, do these things go together? How am I going to manage my time? This is a great time to really lay the concrete plans, the steps that you're going to take to nurture those seeds and bring them to life. So this is, for the rest of winter, this is a great time to make sure you're just really clear about what is going to be getting your time and attention, how you're going to nurture those things, and just, yeah, like, getting your ducks in a row, getting your tools lined up, getting, dusting off the, your overalls to go work outside, whatever. But this is the time to just, like, finish that preparation because life's about to get real busy.
I love that. And, just like little preview, we'll be leveraging the the next month with a Goal 30 launch, which happens next week. So if you're like, oh, I kind of want to like get my ducks in a row and I don't want to do it alone, we'll talk more about that at the end. But that's, I think also, Gary, I don't know if you agree on this, but like this is a great idea of, if you didn't feel like you had a great start to the year, like you still have a second chance to like lay down the foundation, figure out what it is that you want, and then spring can come. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like it's also about setting expectations because our happiness and sort of the way that we perceive things is based on the expectations that we set. And this is the time, especially if you were again trying to like sort of follow the flow that everyone else is doing and jump into the new year, and then you're feeling that resistance and you're not necessarily doing those things, realizing that yes, we're in a winter time and things are a little bit slow, and you should again give yourself grace. Your body may be again trying to be in alignment with the current seasons and whatnot. So yeah, that's my take on it. And one of the things that, like, as I'm planning things going forward with this new info, I'm thinking of like, all right, well, what if that winter time of the year is for more slower things, that aren't really as fast paced. I was thinking about professional development stuff, like, oh, what if I use that time to like sort of study stuff and again, lay the groundwork for things, knowing that it's typically a slower time.
Yeah. And then to piggyback on that, like, even though I'm not necessarily, I'm thinking about how like January is like the start of the new year, the new goals, all of that stuff. I think about the fact that when we do plan, the ASC does our annual planning retreats in October. It is so that we can kind of sit in that period to like incubate and think about the goals and the vision that we've set and try to put the ducks in a row. So it kind of transitions into winter to do some of those things, and then also being present with your loved ones during the holidays. If you have holidays to celebrate, it's just really taking that time to nurture the relationships and some of the foundational stuff, which I know is always part of my plan, but I didn't think about it from that perspective. So cool. All right, shall we move to spring? Are we ready?
Let's
all right it. Annie, you go for it.
Okay.
What does spring bring us?
Spring, like for me, spring is the new year. Like spring equinox is like, all right, spring is here. We are now at the point where the day and night are equal and we are moving back toward the light. This is when we are seeing, bears are coming out of hibernation. All of those daffodils are starting to bloom. Like this is the part where nature is coming back to life. We're seeing those buds popping on the trees, and it feels like life again to me. Especially having lived in very much winter places with clear, cold, snowy winters, that spring does feel like, oh my gosh, now I'm coming back to life. I'm thawing out. It's time to like, now I feel ready to like, let's get out there and do the things. So I tend to think of like my new year as far as projects and things as spring equinox, because this is really the part where everything is coming back. It's like life's coming back online. Okay, we had a rest, integrated, learned some new things, did all that, and like now we're ready to really take action and move forward. This is the part where we start planting those seeds in the garden. We start, getting our homes, spring cleaning is a thing, right? We're like opening the windows, getting fresh air, bringing that fresh energy in. And so, I've wondered since I started thinking about things like this, if, I know a lot of New Year's resolutions, like people that do resolutions that like have a hard time sticking with it. And I can't help but wonder, like, would it be different if it was aligned with that spring energy where it's like, okay, I have more energy now to actually propel me forward and stick with this rather than trying to start it when everything's trying to rest. So this is a wonderful time. If you made some New Year's resolutions and you kind of fell off the wagon a little bit, yep, that's fine. This is to be expected. So this is the time to maybe renew those or update those, and this is the time to really like launch into the new things.
I love that. I'm like hoping that's what that is because woof, I've had a start to 2025 that hasn't been the best. So Gary, do you have any thoughts or reflections on spring before I share mine?
Yeah. And again, thinking back on just my historic behavior, um, it's very exciting. Like there's just something about, again, that sort of renewal. And I start thinking about daylight savings time and how, so I'm typically like a morning person. And I get up and I do workouts and stuff like that. And like, it's been so hard to like do like runs and stuff because it's so dark. And then, but as we're getting closer to daylight savings time, it is like it's brighter out when I'm up that early, and I'm more motivated to do stuff. So yeah, again, reflecting on my own stuff. Yeah. And I'm thinking of like, yeah, how can we, again, use our own body's rhythm as momentum so that we're not pushing? Because here at the ASC, we're all about like trying to resist that sort of hustle culture of like having to push just for the sake of pushing. And I'm all about like working smarter, than harder. So yeah, this is very interesting.
I love that. And then, I'm thinking about what spring looks like for me, and it's interesting because of what it's like March, April, May, right? I know, I don't know how this impacts this or is impacted by the seasons, but my entire family has their birthdays in the spring. So there's this piece of like spring is like rebirth. And so it is a rebirth year or time for us. March is kind of quiet. The beginning of April is kind of quiet. And then from the end of April throughout the month of May, it's chaos. Right. And it's also happening at the same time that school is ending. The kids are getting squirrely because they're like, oh, it's almost summer. And so it's like, it's a really interesting, for me specifically, it's like this quiet, 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 loud. And so I'm really curious to hear what summer brings, which I know just based on the way that I think, but I'm like curious to hear how that transition either lends itself to or like, leads me to potential crashes and burns. I'm not sure, but it is just so interesting that for me personally, that our like birth month is encapsulated in that time of year. And so I don't know. I don't it's a nice thing to think about, but I'm gonna be curious to look at it through this different lens now with that's just an embedded thing that's already there, but like how can I further leverage the spring? So yeah. Any final
Yeah.
thoughts from you, Annie?
Yeah, and I mean, like spring is one of those transition seasons that, it's 3 months long. It's not just the planting the seeds. It's like now we start to see the shoots, and now we start to see, the trees are getting their leaves. Like we're seeing a lot of action happening during this time period. And like back to the garden analogy, like, okay, you don't leave everything you plant. Like if you plant more seeds than you need. So spring is the time to like, let's throw some stuff out there. Let's see this is the time to experiment. What about this? What about that? Let's plant all these seeds. And then towards the end of the season, we start to see what is showing signs of life. What things do I want to nurture and to continue to see it grow? And so sometimes you have to like trim out, like, okay, some of these, we have too many things here now. I planted too many seeds. And so which ones is it that I really want to foster? But spring is the time to like, yep, lay it all down, let's go. And then also remembering as we kind of get to the end of that season to like, okay, pause. Like I love to do an end of season reflection, like pause. What is growing? What is showing signs of life? How full is my plate? Can I actually carry all of these forward, or do I need to like do some trimming? And with that experimentation, we're seeing, oh, this is really fun. I want more of that. Oh, I planted this seed, but turns out maybe I don't really want that. So let's go ahead and chuck it. Like this, before we get into that next season, also there is a part of spring that is like, let's make sure what we're taking into summer is manageable, and the stuff that we really want to see further growth with. So those are my final spring thoughts.
I love it. All right. And then we're
And I have
going
a real quick on this, since we've been talking about gardens and vegetables
to.
and I think of, again, before we had like grocery stores and all that stuff where we can get things all the time, we would eat things seasonally. And so I'm curious, like, again, in these different seasons, are there certain activities that make more sense given the various seasons? Just like how we would eat certain vegetables or certain things in different seasons. Yeah, 'cause that's it. Just yeah, I don't expect Eddie to have for you to have a response, but that's the thing that I'm thinking of. As I'm like, I love your thing of like, yeah, we have all these things planted, and we maybe need to trim some stuff, but also I'm thinking of like, oh, from an execution standpoint, maybe some of these things are better in the winter, or in the spring and summer and fall.
For sure. And so, yeah, like for spring I always think of spring as like, this is the time because life's about to get real busy, right? We're bursting back into life. So now this is the time to focus on practices, routines that really help us like feel energized and feel that like vital energy coming back. If you're a runner, or if, for me, it's like, this is the time I get to go back outside and spend more time in the forest. Like that is, that's energizing for me. And so really, as far as like physically, mentally, giving yourself those practices, and these are things you can, this is part of the planning of winter, right? What practices, activities, things like that make me feel energized and ready to do more. And so those are great springtime activities. Getting outside, of course, as the sun starts coming back. Yeah, being more active, get outside. Making sure you are building your supports too, right? Because we're getting into the busiest times of year, making sure. And one of the things I do love about the ASC community is like, yeah, finding your people, finding your support systems that are going to help you, right? Like, managing a garden is a whole lot easier when you have a whole bunch of people to help you. So, finding your communities, finding those mutually beneficial support places that are going to help you carry through the busy time of year. Um, Things that will also help you build up those reserves of tools and just what are you going to need in order to nurture these things. This is and taking those first concrete steps toward what you were planning in winter. Like this is the time for action, do the thing, and I feel like for me, at least, it's so much easier to be in that active state and to take that action when I know there's going to be a season of rest coming later, that I just don't burn out in the same way that when following the traditional kind of modern capitalist way of just same thing all the time, grind it out, hustle. And like, it's easier to have those bigger bursts of energy and to get more done when I know I'm going to get to rest later. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and to that point, as we are going and thinking about summer, I know everywhere but the U.S. tends to use summer as a place of rest, and doing like other things other than work stuff. I know a lot of European folks that I know, they're like, don't try to get at me until September. Like, yeah, I'm doing some work, but like we're off doing stuff. Like, we're adventuring and we're doing all these things.
Awesome.
Totally.
All right. It's summertime.
It's summertime. And, like summer looks very different, kind of depending on your orientation, depending on if you have kids, right? Like if you've got kids and they're not in school, that looks totally different than it does if you, have a traditional schedule or don't have children or whatever. So, all of this is the beautiful thing. All of this is adaptable to whatever your life and your lifestyle looks like. Summer, I mean, the general vibe of summer is like, this is our busiest time. This is when everything we're seeing real growth. We're seeing things moving forward. This is also the time of toiling, right? If we think back to like early agriculture, farmers, like this is the time when you are really focused on getting these things to grow so that you have a good harvest come fall. Like this is the part where we are really nurturing the things that we want to harvest in the future. Projects, personal activities. We're taking times, we have so much more daylight. This is where we get to spend more time with family, being more active, getting out there, doing the fun things. I think that's really important part of summer, to make sure we're bringing in the time to play and enjoy. I mean, this is the part where you're seeing like, your bears are like relaxing in the shade. They're not out there hustling all day. They're like, yes, we're soaking up the sun. We are, we'll get fat and sassy for winter in just a bit, but right now we are enjoying this season of, just warmth. And I mean, it's very energetic too, because obviously we have all of the sunshine. So it's a balance of, but it's hot. Like we don't want to do a ton of activity when it's super hot out. And so this is the part where the making some of those trims in late spring is important, because we're not going to want to just be running our tails off all summer. We want to also make sure we've got time for that relaxing in the sunshine, sitting on the patio with a book or whatever. Like, so summer gets to be kind of a balance of that nurturing, toiling, making sure we're preparing things for harvest, but also enjoying the longer days, the warmth, the time with family and friends. This is when we have barbecues and get together and do a lot of fun community things too. So continuing to like build those communities, do fun things with your communities, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I feel like from like the summer perspective, first of all, like one of the things that I thought about was like, hey, in the ASC, we do Goal 30 Play Life in the summer, which is like the perfect timing for, us to, even though we're not like grinding or, working on our goals in that same way where we pick something and, take action on it in our Goal 30 challenges. It is really going through a series of fun, playful challenges to remember to reinstill that youthful, playful vibe. And there's no better time to do it in summer, I think. So we just kind of line that up, which, yay, high five. But one of the things that I always think about when summertime comes, I do a lot of preparing for summer in the spring. So that's interesting. But I feel like maybe everybody's like this, but as a parent, there's this feeling of like, you get out of school and you're like, like I just need to relax. Work wise, it changes the structure of what I do because of the fact that my kids are home running in and out, and I have to attend to them, make sure they eat, get them to where they need to go. Hopefully that's only for another couple of years, but having to attend to them. And so it diverts my energy, my attention away from, some of the harder work things so that I can be more present. And I always say like, I need to rest, but then there's that piece of me that's like, I just was working so much and like doing stuff in the spring that now like, I'm afraid of like letting that momentum go, or else it's going to be that much harder in the fall. So it's interesting. But then also at the very end of summer, I'm like, I don't want to talk to you, because I was like socializing so much, and I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to talk until, and then it's usually until next summer, because I've like blown all of my energy with the energy that I was receiving, and I'm tired. So that's just what I notice about summer. Gary,
that makes me think, just again in hearing you, April, of the different types of rests and the different types of activities. So during the summer, it's maybe more social activity, project rest, so that in the fall, when you harvest, you're jumping back in again, and then maybe it's more of a social rest, because we spent a lot of time the summer socializing, and then because adding one thing that you said and like makes sense is like it's not sustainable to like hustle through all of these seasons and expect to survive. Like you need to, again, there's rhythms, and things like that. So that's, again, in hearing April's thing is like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot of like social type of things that we do during the summer. And then, the summer's over and we're like, all right, done with that. But again, if we structure our projects and and goals and stuff to align with these seasons, I feel like we will probably, not saying that we'll get more done, but like maybe we'll end the year like not completely depleted of resources.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, that's where the weather takes, comes into play where, I know Gary, you have decently good weather for most of the year where it's like from us, like we can have good weather from like the start of July to September and then it's gone. So like people are like, no, like I need to be out in the sun as much as possible. So there's this like desire to capitalize on, you know, drinking all the energy and depleting ourselves because it's such a sprint. So not ideal, but it's the reality of Chicago.
Well, and I think that, I mean, yes, it all totally varies based on where you are, but it's that same thing of like, I always think of spring and fall. These are our kind of transition seasons, but those are when the most, I mean, again, think about a garden. This is when the most work happens, right? In the summer, like you need to pull some weeds and make sure it's watered, but that's not the time when you have so much to do. And so that's when, yep, you get those social activities and you're spending a lot of that energy. And so it's also recognizing that we have different kinds of energy. We've got energy for social stuff. We've got energy for like creative energy. We've got our kind of like, okay, knuckle down, task oriented, get some of those things done. And just remembering that, yeah, like you're going to expend a lot of social energy and often a lot of physical energy in the summer because you're out, you want to be in the sun, you're moving around. There's a ton of different things going on. So you're going to be expending more of that energy. But yeah, so if you can kind of set your garden up in spring to kind of just have minimal maintenance stuff through those busier social season, then, you can shift kind of where that attention goes instead of trying to do all of it.
Yeah, for sure. So that's so cool. Do we have anything else or should we move on to fall?
Yeah, fall.
All right, let's do it. We fall down. No, I'm just kidding.
Fall's my favorite. I won't lie. I'm a big, the transition seasons are always my favorite, but I love fall.
Yeah, I agree.
The weather starts to cool off. My tree friends put on their pretty colorful coats and I love it. So yeah, fall is this is harvest time, right? Like we're at the end of summer, kids are going back to school. Yeah, for some, like my husband is a teacher. So that's kind of his new year this is when new things begin. But like traditionally, this is the part where we just kind of go, oh, okay. Whew. We made it through those 2 crazy times. Now it's time to like start preparing for harvest. And this obviously there are projects that grow over multiple years, but we're thinking, this is the time to start thinking about, okay, what has come to fruition? What has kind of reached its potential and is ready to harvest? What things do I want to carry forward that have more longevity? But this is the time to really pause and reflect because as we go through, like this is a season of reflection. This is just not an end of summer reflection. This is the like time of year to really take stock of like all of the activity that's happened through spring and summer and recognize what we've learned. What do we want to take forward? What things have just like, okay, run their course. It is time to let them go, drop those leaves. Like we cannot carry everything forward. And so this is the part of the year where, yeah, it's time to like take a beat, have a breath, look back on what we've gained, all the stuff we've picked up, all the energy we've expended, and start thinking about preparing for winter. Like, yeah, we got to clean out the garden. We got to harvest, we got to can, we got to like store all of the food that we're harvesting. We're going to have these feasts. We're going to, share the bounty. This is a time of, big abundance and celebrations in a lot of ways, and how we begin to, prepare for rest so that we're not like dragging some of that dead energy into winter. That like fall is that season to like clean it up. This is when, again, we go through the house too and like, start winterizing things, preparing for the cold. And so, yeah, fall is the like, okay, we made it. let's gather ourselves again, get with our people, celebrate what we've accomplished, and, start preparing to like review, reset, and, then we're coming around back to winter.
Love that. Gary, you go first. You come in.
Yeah, I love the whole thing about celebration. And I feel like we don't do a lot of that. And I look at our ASC sort of our retreat as a celebration, celebration of the year that we just had and allow us to prune all of that stuff. And we're looking at like, all right, cool. What do we want? And then start to like think about what is it next that we want to create. And then, so, oh my gosh, these are all so great, Annie. Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about it from the perspective of like, okay, that there's, we do plan in the fall, and it is like we are starting to not even necessarily put the things in action, but it is that space to think about like, what is it that we want? What did we learn about ourselves from the year that has passed? And not necessarily jumping into like taking the actions, but reimagining what that could be like, but also celebrating the fruits of our labor from the year that has just passed. And so I don't know, I'm feeling like pretty good about the idea of doing planning in the fall based off of how to leverage the seasons, because it's not necessarily like we go home and we start just running into action. Like the whole point of doing it in October is to give yourself, while you still have some of that energy from the summer and the inspiration, to like think on a very wide and think in from this very big perspective about like what's possible for you, and then kind of easing into it, putting your ducks in a row. It's like taking that whole winter to put your ducks in a row, maybe starting some of the things that that you can handle at the beginning, and then just going through that wave. So it's like there's an energetic like wave pattern where there's like an up and down that like we don't necessarily see unless we step back and take a look at it from the seasons, which is really, really interesting. And so I don't know, I'm feeling good about fall, but like I have this like newfound appreciation for fall too, because it's got this celebration and like forward looking piece to it that none of the other seasons I feel like have,
Yeah, there's an element of that. And yeah, I think that you're planning that the retreats are well timed, right? Like this is the time to reflect and review and celebrate that harvest. And you're not jumping back into action. You're like, okay, I need to clean out the garden. I need to like get everything, set for winter, and that's just it. Winter isn't like, Gary, you were saying about like the different kinds of activities. Like winter isn't we're sitting around doing nothing. This is the part where we are like the practices, and fall is the same thing. A great time for practices to like release that excess energy, to prepare for rest, to like rejuvenate. This is the time to like have a spa day, like release some of that tension, and just really I always think of the trees, like shed those leaves. Like you can't carry it all forward. And so just to be really thoughtful about the different areas of your life and kind of what needs to go. This is the like, okay, nope, no more of that. So yeah, it is. I always think of spring as the like we're bringing in the fresh energy, and then fall is very much the releasing the old. Like we're just shedding the things that we're all done with.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome.
And April, that makes me think of, you remember when we had, I forgot what year that was with the retreat where we did the burning of things that we wanted to let go.
Oh yeah. We do some really fun things at the retreats, y'all. But that's
it. So it makes me think of like, for this next year, like, is there some sort of shedding thing? Because it's the fall, you know, so.
We'll have drop those leaves.
Definitely. Drop those leaves.
Uh-huh.
I love that.
I love it.
So, okay, so we've gone through all of the 4 seasons. Um, if we look at, the year as a whole, um, Annie, what would be your best? So, like, let's say there's somebody out there that's like, okay, I've taken this in. I kind of know I'm kind of working on autopilot, not necessarily being intentional with the seasons, but like just kind of reactive, right? Because a lot of the things that we do in the ASC is like trying to transition you from, or each of us, from being in this reactive position, like just responding to life, but being more proactive and intentional. Because when you are in control of your life choices and your desires and preferences, like it's just more fulfilling, right? Because you are manifesting what you want instead of just letting life happen to you and feeling like, frazzled. But so if somebody is kind of coming into this that's like, okay, I want to like, oh, I just hit my glasses, totally revamp my view on, you know, productivity. I want to think about the seasons, or I just want to like figure out how to incorporate this and make that shift from reactive to proactive. What would you suggest people, like, where should they start?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say the first, if there, it doesn't matter. You can start anywhere. You don't have to start in winter. You don't have to, you can kind of pick your season. And so like, if you're coming into this in spring, it's like, okay, then let me think about what are the ideas that have been rumbling around? What are the seeds that I'm curious about planting? What is it that I want to like explore or experiment with? And maybe just choose one of those things to like, okay, let's see what happens if I take some action toward this thing that I want. Um, if you're coming into this with in summer energy, maybe you're looking at what things have I already planted? What things are already growing in my life? And where, like, choose one of those. Which of these do I really want to see come to fruition and bear fruit and give a good harvest? And maybe spend some extra time and attention on that one thing. Like, just let that be enough. Or, really lean into that social energy of summer and like, okay, this is going to be my season. I'm just going to play. I'm going to play for a minute and then we'll come back. If you're coming into this with fall energy, um, I'm a fan of like, all right, let's make the list of what needs to go, what's already on my plate, and where do I need to like clean house. I mean, yeah, I'm a fan. I love a good clean out that like get rid of all this extra junk. So if you're coming into it with fall energy, that like, yeah, start thinking about what's all the stuff I'm carrying. What things can I set down? What things can I let go of? And if you're coming into it with that winter energy, that's the perfect like dreaming time. What is it that I want for my life? What is it that I want for this next year, this next season, this next moon cycle, if you want to get really naturey? So it doesn't matter. You can start anytime and just take one thing from that kind of seasonal energy and implement that. Just start with something small, and then as you kind of move through the course of the year, see how that feels. And like you said, some people adjust based on their birthday. I've seen people like based on their astrology, that different times of years feel different based on kind of that part of their life. So, checking in with yourself too, and what kind of seasonal energy am I feeling? Maybe it isn't the same as what's happening outside your window, but like, I really feel like I'm in a season where I just need to get rid of some stuff. Great. Put on some like fall cozy sweater music and make yourself a mug of tea. It doesn't matter if it's middle of summer, whatever. Like, if that's the vibe you're in, then you can harness the different seasons, like the different energy from those seasons any time of year.
Love that. And I think too, there could be this feeling of like, oh my God, I have to like completely transform my life and do all of it all at once. And no, we don't need to. We can choose one little thing. You can say, like, you know what? I don't love my morning routine. I'm going to work on my morning routine. And let me tell you, that is actually a very hard project because everything that you do in a day impacts everything. So you can start it super small. I think a few years ago, I was like, I just want to start flossing every day. it took me like 3 years to like get into the system, and I do it now. Like, it's little things to transform your life rather than worrying about the big things. But as soon as you take control of each little thing and then get that to a place of stability, then you can try a new thing, which is just kind of what I'm taking away from this conversation too. It's really about like, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of what you need, and how can you leverage, how can you be a partner with your season to do your best work. And I love being able to look at it from that perspective now, because I think that I've looked at my personal data and just even all the people that we've worked with to, make these transformations and make these small little steps to the lives that we want to live. But being able to look at it from a different lens always gives us new flavor and different things to try, so that it doesn't feel so boring doing the same thing over and over again. So like, I love this conversation. Gary, do you want to share any like takeaways from your end? Because I know that we have to wrap up soon.
Yeah, April, you hit it on all cylinders. This has been so enlightening, Eddie. Oh my gosh, it gives me so much to think about as far as like sort of life optimization. But I think the big takeaway for me is just realizing that we have ebbs and flows, and to really just acknowledge those and try to work with them, not work against them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the big takeaway, is that like rest is a season. Rest is a thing we need. Like the idea that we can just have the same energy and the same output every single day, all year long, that's insane. Nothing in nature does that. So let us just, take a lesson from, our home environment here. And that like, in this culture that tells us to be more, do more, always go, grow, that like, that's not really how life works. That there has to be time to rest, reset, release. And let's just stop fighting it.
Totally. And Annie, just to give us a good note to end on, if somebody just like fast forwarded, which would be very, very sad, because this was such an amazing conversation. If they were to like fast forward to like this moment in time right now, and you only had one thing that you wanted them to take away from this conversation, what would that one thing be?
Oh, that's geez, put me on the spot right there. I would say the big
Dun, dun.
takeaway is, that I think, Gary, you nailed it, that life is an ebb and flow. Like, you are not a machine. You are a part of nature. Pay attention to what nature is doing and allow yourself rest. Because I feel like that's the thing that people miss the most, is rest.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So people rest. And in the season of rest, I'm gonna like, how do I transition this to talking about what we've got going on in the Accountability Success Circle? So we are a community that focuses on helping you achieve your goals throughout the year, throughout the seasons. And we do our annual planning retreats in October, and we spend the rest of the year helping each other take action on what truly matters. We have a program that we do every month and a half ish called Goal 30. It's a 30-day challenge program that's designed to help you focus on a goal, whether it's something small, like I want to, work on, decluttering, or I mean, I guess that's a big project, but or I want to help streamline my life in some of these ways, or I want to work on a project. It really can be anything that you choose to do, but it really just helps you keep that focal point on something that you want to do. And so knowing that we are in that last month of winter where we can figure out what we want to come to fruition for spring. This is a great challenge. We're going to be kicking off a new launch on next Thursday, the 27th. And then our day one of the challenge will be the following Monday. We can come together and think about like, what is it that we can do to leverage the remainder of this winter season together? I'm definitely going to take snippets from this conversation and embed that into what I think I need to do for Goal 30. There's a lot of feeling of letting go in my aura right now. So that might be something that I will focus and work on. But if you feel like you have stuff that you want to work on, but you don't want to do it alone, come check out Goal 30. We'll throw in the chat the link to sign up if you've never joined us before. But if you're a member of the ASC already, it's all going to be there for you to just hop on if you'd like. And if you are new and curious and want to join us, you do get a free trial to check it out. So you can find out more about the Accountability Success Circle at www.accountabilitysuccesscircle.com, or you can find more out about Goal 30 at goal30.accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. Did I miss anything, Gary?
Nailed it.
Nailed it. But I just wanted to wrap up and thank Annie for the amazing conversation. You know, it's been a while since we've done a webinar, and so like thank you so much for doing it. Like these things just energize me, and I definitely needed that right now. So I appreciate you, and I know that the conversation doesn't stop here. Annie is an awesome member of our community, so if you want to know more about her, you should come and join us. And you can hang out with me and Gary because we are super fun. All of us are, you know, here to have more fun and get stuff done. So come check us out, and we'll see you in the next. Any last words, anyone?
Thanks. This was great.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys later. Bye.